Hi, everyone. So we'll start the meeting today. Welcome, everyone, to the Bridge Book Club. Tonight, we are going to continue our discussion on the treatise Projectiology. And tonight, before I introduce our facilitators, just some reminders. We are going to be recording this session. And typically, when we get to the section on sharing our experiences, we sometimes go into breakout rooms, so we will stop the recordings and then come back as a group where we'll start the recording again and then present the technique for this month. So with that being said, if you have any questions or if you want to speak up during the presentation or later on, we'll have a discussion, please feel free to unmute yourself, or you can use the raise your hand function, or you can type something in the chat. And when we have a pause, then the facilitators or one of us can address your questions and comments, okay? So now I would like to present our facilitators. Christina Arakaki has been a volunteer since 1995 and a teacher of Conscientiology since 1997. She is a Panta practitioner, and her current conscientiological specialties of interest are paralology and cosmoethics. She was born in Brazil, Rio de Janeiro, and lived in Iguaçu Falls for the last 20 years. Roberta de Almeida is a physician, a volunteer, and teacher of Conscientiology since 1996. Roberto is a researcher and co-manager of the Collegiology movement to promote research in conscientiological specialties through the Invisible Colleges of Conscientiology. So I will hand it over to you. Thank you, Christina and Roberto.
Thank you.
Thank you, Michiko. Thank you, Magali. Thank you all for being here. And as we said before, it was our pleasure to be here with you. I'm very happy to be here and, you know, with all of you in order to exchange some ideas. And Michiko, one very interesting aspect in my biography that I'm a partner of Roberto for the last 23 years right now. So we can't miss that. Okay.
Very important.
Yeah, it's very important one. Right, Roberto?
Yes, very important.
Okay. So yeah, we'd like to welcome to all. So today we are going to talk about these chapters, and these chapters, Roberto, could you just change the slide, please? Next one. Okay, we are now entering the section 11 of the Projectiology treatise, the Projectiology book, and this section deals with the relationships of the projected consciousness. Okay, it's a very large section with all these chapters, like more than 20-30 chapters. But we are going to today we're going to talk about the first 20 how many chapters we're going to talk, like 20 chapters. Okay, and just to have like a contextualization of these chapters, you have finished the extra-physical period of consciousness. So in the treat now, we enter the cycle of the projection of the consciousness. And Dr. Vieira talks about all the preparation for the projection. Okay, so before this section, you have read or studied the extra-physical period of the consciousness and all the events that occur when the consciousness is out of his or her body. Physical body. Okay, and after this, the relationships of the projected consciousness, they're going to be a study of the interiorization of the consciousness. So the invitation here to all of you is to think that we are out of the body. Okay, just like pretend or imagine ourselves projected out of our body with lucidity, right? And then what could happen since we are out of our body? A lot of events, a lot of interactions, a lot of manifestation of the consciousness right? That could happen when the consciousness, he or she, is out of his body. Okay. Next. So we select some key messages related to the first chapters that we are going to talk about. And the first one is the maturity of psychosoma. So the value of our interconsciential relationships. So what kind of the quality of our interconsciential relationships is very important here. So depending on the quality and how deep and how self-aware and how predisposed we are in order to interact in a more cosmoethical, intersubstantial, and way with other consciousness. Beginning with introphysical consciousness, that I think it's easier. Okay, so the manner that we related ourselves here with the introphysical consciousness and other conscious or other principles as well, so all kind of consciential principle, okay, like pre-humans or like means animals, okay, and other in the botanic environment, plants, for instance. So this will help us to be more mature in terms of emotions and sentiments. And maybe if we had the chance, we can discuss a little bit about how Conscientiology deals with this kind of subject like emotions and sentiments, because I personally think that sometimes there are some kinds of misunderstandings regarding to this subject, because people maybe could think that it's valuable to repress the emotions. Yeah, so maybe later on we could have some kind of discussion about this. The second topic that we select here is the maturity of mental soma. So the value of the convergent intellect. So Roberto's going to talk a little bit about this. And the third one will be evolutionary importance of prosemics. Okay? Is everything good so far, people? Yes? You want to try some kind of questions?
Yes, I would like to just, in case of someone don't know, the term prosemics is related with the distance between people and consciousness, and the importance of the proximity or distance between consciousness. Why this is important in terms of evolution. And these chapters in this section shows a lot of arguments about this, and then this is something very important to discuss too. Yes.
Okay.
I would like to, the next slide, I would like to give a picture about the chapters that I think is important to understand why projections out of the body is important to our evolution. Because usually we are in this dimension, and some of us realize that we are not only beings living in this dimension, and this is what we call, usually we call this a kind of intermissive sign of consciousness that is aware in some way that we are not this body. There is a lot of people that live in this planet nowadays, they think they are this body. And this kind of identification with the body is something related with the level of maturity of consciousness. And the big work that we have, I usually used to say, because the mega clarification task that we need to do is to clarify people that we are evolutionary consciousness. We are consciousness in the process of evolutions, and we are not this body. We are multidimensional beings. And a very practical tool is develop this technique of projection of out of the body. This is something that we need to invest time and energy to develop these skills, but is something that is very, very important when we have these experiences by ourselves. We are able to understand that we are not this body. Then this is the main thing. I think the reason of the projectiology is a very important science to put in practice the concept of conscientiology. So this was a graph. This represent a part of an article that I wrote about paraepistemology. I didn't put the reference, but I will send the reference. And then this is a discussion about the origin of knowledge. And when we use to live in this life as an interphysical being, usually we are related with the nature of knowledge is something that we have the information come to us through our senses, our five senses. And usually the discussion here is that in epistemology, the origin of knowledge, usually there is an object and a subject. The object is what is about to be known. What we need to know something, and something is outside of us. And this triangle represents this object or other consciousness, something that is not us. And this oval or the circle is the subject, is us. And then I would like to guide you to this, to understand this picture, trying to understand that the object, the triangle, there is some part of this triangle that we capture when we have experience with this, with interphysical experience, for instance. We have a connection with part of, with the images, with sounds, with the smells and other aspects. And this is captured, and we create a representation of this inside of us. This is called imago or imago. This is a kind of representation, and this is our perceptive knowledge. This is what we acquire from our senses, and then we work with this. And this representation that we have in our heads, in our mind, in our consciousness, is something related with the reality, that is the triangle. But we know now, and Kant is a philosopher that has a discussion about this, and he created this idea that what we represent is not the complete reality, is a phenomenon. It means that is what we perceive. And the other part that is in the lower part of the triangle is the other part that we not perceive, is beyond our perceptions. He used the name mnemonic, or the thing itself, what other characteristic that is not perceived by our senses. And usually he stops his philosophy in this point. And now we, with Conscientiology and Projectiology, we have tools and concepts to understand how it will be possible to us to connect with the full reality of the object, of the reality, other consciousness, other dimensions, because we can have another experience between us and the reality. And maybe this is the reason that I choose to bring this image here to discuss these chapters that we will discuss some aspects further. This idea is related with the possibility of parapsychism and lucid projections, create an or socinic exchange between us and the other aspects of reality, other consciousness and other objects that are in the reality. And this socinic exchange maybe is the reason that we can develop another way of perception that is paraperceptive knowledge, and we create a kind of representation, but is more than a representation because it's a complete connection with the reality. I am trying to say that the perceptive knowledge that is a representation is a partial representation of reality, and maybe through the projections and the parapsychism we can develop a more full interactive perception of the reality. And this is what these chapters will discuss. The chapters will talk about some different aspects of this socinic exchange that maybe this is the reason that we develop so many phenomena in terms of para-perceptions and para-clairvoyance, clairaudience, and other phenomena that all is related with this possibility of socinic exchange directly between the subject and the object. Maybe in this moment, I would like to see with you if there is some question that I try to explain here before we move on to the discussion of the specific chapters. This guy is arriving here. He's Ulysses. He will help a lot. I will try to wait for him because he could help me with this idea. I discussed with him yesterday about because this concept of convergent intellect and divergent intellect is a concept that Ulysses is working a lot. He's the reference to this subject, and we are you usually discuss this kind of thing, and this is an opportunity to clarify more and try to understand why the projections of consciousness is so important and why parapsychism is so important to the study of consciousness. Because we need is a necessary evolutionary necessity to create a more convergent intellect or a more realistic approach to the reality. Because when we usually work with the divergent intellect, we create imagery, we create fantasies, we create illusions, and this is not the way to get evolved. We need to be more.
Sorry.
Yes.
Can you explain a little bit more about what is divergent? Because I understand that convergent is everything, even your parapsychism, and you can converge. I don't know if it's that, but all your perceptions, like your Tosini, to understand better, because you put all your perceptions there, like in a real world, like outside of your body. So you have an expansion and you have a para-perception. So you get a better view of the thing. But diversion, what do you call diversion?
Well, this concept, well, there is the convergent is what converge with the reality. The reality is there. And when I develop some skills and I begin to approach reality with more connections, with more parapsychism and with the lucid project, I converge my perception, my way of represent or have inside of me, the consciousness, the awareness is more convergent with the reality. When I'm developing other way is when we are limited with I don't have the skills, I grasp this reality in parts, and these parts are worked inside of us in some way that sometimes is divergent from reality, is not coherent, is not representing, we are not creating reality, we are creating fantasy inside of us. And this
For
is
example, would it be fair to say like beliefs, as an example,
yes, beliefs
are divergent from
yes,
a more cleaner interpretation of reality?
exactly. Yes, beliefs, all kind of mystical approach of reality, all kinds of deceiving ways of we are not in contact, we are not creating, we are not going to direction to the reality. This is not the way of evolution. The evolution is to go in the direction, is be in contact with the reality. This is what is convergent, is more. So this is the way, like the other guys are. This is the way.
I had a question too, like about the these connection points between the subject and the object, so the Thalssenic exchange and the time and space dimension. And I was wondering, can you just briefly talk about the Thalssenic exchange and in relation to time and space as well?
Well, this is something very puzzle to us. I think I'm studying in this presentation. I'm trying to the key message that space or the prosemic is more important to us, and this is something that is very important to understand, because time is not so important. I don't know, but I will say this in this way. I will try to explain this way. All the consciousness that existed in the past, in other lives, all the consciousness that have already existed in the past, they are now in this exact present moment somewhere in some dimension. Do you agree with this first argument? All the consciousness that already existed, they are now in this moment. Where are these consciousness? Now, I am here, you are there, and someone is in some other dimensions, okay? They are now in somewhere, another place, another dimension. Do you agree? And the consciousness that will exist in the future as a living being, or the child that will be born in 2050, this future being, this consciousness already exists now in somewhere, in some space. Do you agree with this other argument?
Yep, sure.
So the present is the most important time. There is only present, because we are all living in the present all the time. But what changes the space, dimensions, and then we are interacting with this. So there is this way that the universe is, the evolution is conceived. We have intraphysical experience. We have this dimension to live inside. And then when we are here, okay, we have this perception of time, space, and different, when we constructed our way of interact with reality. But through projection of consciousness, we have a way out, a window, a possibility to be in contact with the reality without this restriction of this space-time dimension that we are here, intraphysical dimension. So what happened in this experience or these projections? We are exchanging those scenes, interacting with consciousness in different dimensions, and there is some consciousness that is good for us to be in contact with that consciousness, and there is other consciousness that is not good for us, we have to avoid. And this is some of the arguments that these chapters are presenting, that there are some consciousness, some places, some It's not good for us to be in contact. So we have this possibility to interact with consciousness directly, to be close to that consciousness. And we exchange those scenes with them. We exchange energies, we exchange informations. And this is something very, very important to our evolution. So when we have the possibility to do this, outside of this dimension, interphysical dimension, is another approach. There is why this is why I put in the upper side of this image, when we have the intraphysical experience with the reality, is a limited interaction with some aspects of the reality, and we have access to some consciousness and other consciousness. I am not accessing other consciousness in other parts of the planet, other parts of the. So there is this possibility. When I have parapsychism and projection, lucid projections, I can access more consciousness because I can interact more. I don't know if I made myself clear with this long explanation. Well, so this is, I don't know if Ulysses is here, is listening. I'm not seeing here. I just want to know if he would like to add something. So
maybe Roberto, sorry, I don't know if Ulysses is going to talk now. I can't see him. Okay. Maybe we could, what you could also said about this image here is that depending on the quality of your relations when you are outside the body, and of course the level of your lucidity and your self-awareness, this kind of understanding about what is the perceptive knowledge and the paraperceptive knowledge could be enhanced. So I think that the key point here is to really understand and also maybe reflect upon the great challenges, of course, but the great results of being more aware about this perceptive knowledge and the paraperceptive knowledge concerning the relationships of the projected consciousness. Is that what, I don't know if you all guys agree with me, but because here in this dimension, sometimes you are being so enslaved by time, yes, and so I think that's and our perception about the pace of time, and this could influence in our perceptive knowledge and also paraperceptive knowledge. I don't know if you agree with me, but these are some ideas that we can extract from by reading these chapters, right, Roberto?
Yes. Any questions about this in order to understand? This is a kind of framework to understand, because when we start to discuss the relationship, we are discussing this thosenic exchange, this paraperceptive knowledge, the projection is creating a direct contact with the other consciousness, other environments, multidimensional environments, and we are trying to understand what is so much bigger than what is the interphysical reality. Interphysical reality is a scratch. It is something, is a character, I don't know, is caricatura, is a scratch, yeah, this is something, is very, a copy, very simplistic copy of a multidimensional reality. And we are not prepared. I'm assuming that the reason to be here is that we are not fully prepared in terms of emotions and psychosoma and mental soma to deal with the reality. And then we are here because it's a kind of kindergarten, something more protective for us to be here, to live here, to deal with low level of information, yes, with simple things. It's not so simple, yes, but it's simpler than the multidimensional aspects of reality. Okay, so let's continue with the chapters. Yeah.
Roberto, Magali said something about, so you're saying just part of the reality from each other, our matrix. Do you want to talk a little more about this, Magali?
No, it's just ideas when Roberto was talking, and that is just ideas about how we cannot see each other as we are, or not totally, I mean, but more, profound reality of each other here. And also how we live it, like when he said about the kindergarten, I just came this thought about our matrix. No, is our matrix here. We come and we do some exercise and then we come back to reality.
Yeah, could be we are in a school here, we are learning some lessons to deal with more complex things, and with the full reality we are not able to deal. And because of this, I think that the lucid projection is not so easily made, produced by us. It's not a very common skill between us. Interphysical consciousness is not so easy because we are all night we are out of our body. This is something very important. But lucid projections interacting the way that the chapters present is another way, another thing. Be outside of our body and maybe suffering because of our perceptive knowledge, because of our divergent intellect. We are suffering in the astrophysical sometimes, nightmares, some kind of confused experience, the dreams. This is a kind of regular and normal experience. But lucid projections, doing things, helping, doing evolutionary things is not so easily done. Well, let's go.
Beto, I'm just a little bit worried about time. So Magali and Michiko, we understood that we have like from now on half an hour in order to present the chapters. Is that right?
Yeah, about half an hour, 45 minutes, because we have a smaller group. So we can spend less time discussing maybe.
Okay.
Okay, so what we thought and we're going to suggest is to, I don't know if everybody has read the chapters. Yeah or no?
Usually some
okay,
of them.
usually some. So what we're going to suggest here, then we're going to present the definition of the chapter, okay, of the theme. And then we'd like to address some kind of questions so we can kind of have some kind of discussion or see some ideas that you have related to the subject. Do you think we could do like this? It's okay for you?
Yes.
Yeah? Because, yeah, we have a lot of tests. We have extracted a lot of tests from the book, but I'm just a little bit worried about time, and maybe I think it's best just to present the definition. I don't know what you think, Roberto, and then go on the questions, and then we can have some kind of discussions about the questions.
Yes.
About questions, right?
Right. Well, this chapter, the first chapter, the consciential communicability, is to present the idea that the process and quality of participation of consciousness in its existence and relations with other consciousness. Communicability is something very, very important in terms of consciousness manifestation. This is something very important, and And what is very important is that we create this kind of connection, this kind of interaction that we are discussing, that when we exchange those scenes, communications means that we are making common the something that we have inside of us. We give something and we receive something through communications. This is the essence or the etymology of this word, and this creates this kind of possibility that we are discussing in terms of exchange. We exchange energy, we exchange emotions, we exchange scenes. This is something very important, and this created this possibility. Astrophysical, this communicability will be more sophisticated in terms. So then
yeah, so depending on the quality and how this attribute of communication is already developed on the consciousness, I think that this will interfere in the communication in the extra-physical dimension, okay? So if you're able to communicate or be open or know how to express your ideas here in this dimension, we think that it'd be easier or it'd be less difficult to do this kind of communication when you are outside of your body. I don't know if you agree.
Yes. And then this characteristics, these factors, there is something that I would like to put an emphasis in terms of characteristic of mental idiomatic base, the language that you use here in this dimension interfere in some way the way we think with our, and when we are projected this kind of influence, create a kind of bias, some kind of influence in our relationship with others. And this is something that is presented in this chapter. And there is a lot of factors that are part of this. I will not have time to discuss each one, but there is something that is very important to highlight here, is that the possibility to hear the thoughts. And this is something very strange, because we are hearing our voices here, and because we have this way of produce the voice, the sound, and extraphysically we have the possibility to hear the voice, hear the thoughts, hear the scenes, and this is very important. And I think there is an important question to this, because when we are in these dimensions, how is important the communication to evolution in terms of hear the other consciousness? I would like to ask this question to try to understand the key concept here. Why is necessary to one consciousness hear or have the access to the content of other consciousness in terms of evolution? I would like to hear some answers from you. Why is important this? Why you need to read books, take part of this kind of activity here? Why we need to exchange, talk with other?
I think sharing accelerates evolution.
Okay. And why? Why?
Because of different aspects, different approaches to life. That image you showed before about interpret, you know, it's like what's my interpretation of something, and being able to differentiate that from other people's interpretations, and then I can say, well, maybe that other interpretation is more interesting than mine, or more full, more rich. Whereas if it's just me trying to do that with my own understanding and my own baseline knowledge, it's difficult. So it helps us to start to see beyond things. We start to be able to glimpse some other possibilities.
Yes, very important. Because, right, who is Magali, could you go on?
You can answer, Jeff. I can wait. You're saying something?
No, I'm just trying to say that this help that we give to others when we exchange we communicate, we are giving the possibility that we put our representations, our knowledge, our divergent intellect to the proof. Maybe we are create something that is more fantasy than reality. And this is, we are going to the other way to the evolution. And when we exchange, maybe will be an opportunity to realign, to change our way of thinking, our way of represent the reality. And then with that exchange, with this new information, with this communication, I can go to the direction of more connection with the reality, more convergent intellect. And this is...
Yeah, I was thinking the same way, is because, you know, to make sense of the word sometimes it's confusing, because if you, as you're saying, we are all here right now, even the consciousness, and we have the pressure of the planet Tosin, the planet infantility, the planet, you know, the hospital that is here, and everything comes. We are communicating not only by voice, we are hearing all the time. So when we are having these nightmares, or even when we are feeling something that is beyond us, like even if you are healthy and is not wrong with you yourself, you feel this pressure that is this planet, and so you are communicating. We are a common system, right? So when you talk to people that has a little bit more clarity of what is happening here, and make you be less confused, and have how important it is to have a more evolved consciousness talking to us and making sense. So I think that even between us, or between pairs, right, or even between more evolved people, it's really good. It helps me, I think, make sense of the confusion that we live here sometimes.
Yes, your talk is related with the principle of interassistance, because when we have a consciousness that is less thick and more aware, is able to help the other consciousness that is more thick and less less aware. This is the way. There is a direction from the assistance, and it is relative. It is always possible to communicate, to assist other when we have this moment when one person or one consciousness is more aware, less sick, less confused, less suffering, and able to help other that is less aware, more sick. Then this is very important. The communication is the way of assistance. In the timetable of specialities of consciousness, we have this. We have the relationship between assistance and communication, communicology and interassistenciology. Well, that's it. We move on. The other chapter about interconsciential experience define that the interconsciential experience is the joint simultaneous of experience of two or more consciousness. And here I would like to highlight the idea of put together and the closeness about consciousness, the proximity. This is very important, this kind of experience. So there is a scale of proximity, is a holosomatic closeness, a holosomatic scale of close or of proximity is a somatic proximity. And he example the the sexual intercourse, but could be a hug, is something friendly. Hug is the proximity, is a kind of relation. The holochakral, auric coupling, the interfusion of energy. And he pay attention to the different types of love, physical love, energetic love. And the next, it will be psychosoma with emotions, affections, and affective love, and mental somatic, creating a kind of extraphysical love. These kind of loves are presenting here. This caught my attention to this aspect of this proximity. Love is related with this proximity, and there is different kind of loves.
So nowadays we have this concept of transaffectivity. Is that right, Jeffrey? Transaffectivity, yes. That I think that it's more related to this mental somatic interconsciential experiences. Could just you, Roberto,
Yes.
go back, please?
Yes.
So this mental somatic, yeah, I think it could be like have some kind of proximity of this mental somatic interconsciential experiences, okay? As it said, it's extraphysical love, maturity, when you have like spontaneous telepathy, and maybe when you are outside of your body, have some kind of consented kind of communication. But here it's interesting to point out that sometimes people think that, okay, we're going to just have some kind of mental somatic relation, okay? But in this, since we are in this dimension here, what I'd like to invite you to reflect is that how could we reach this mental somatic kind of interconsciential interaction experience if we do not like express ourselves in this before these stages that are stated before, you know, psychosomatic and also energetic. You understand what I'm saying? Because I think that we could not just jump from the soma to the mental soma. It's important for us to have the experiences with all of our bodies. Yeah, I don't know if you agree with me, because sometimes when you are in the extraphysical dimensions and depending on the kind of, I don't know, assistance, for instance, that you are going to do, some kind of psychosomatic approach is useful. Do you think so? Yeah. So affection, compassion, and some kind of empathy. We are going to talk about empathy later on, or if times permits that. But anyway, so this is kind of reflections that I would like to invite you to do, because sometimes people could think, okay, I'm just going to manifest myself in the mental somatic way, but we are here in this physical dimension with this physical body. We have psychosoma, and we're going to have psychosoma until we reach the position or the level of Serenissimus. So before being a Serenissimus, and even being a Serenissimus, I think that this psychosomatic and affection and emotional way of deal with other consciousness, it's some kind of challenge for us, and it's important for us to express ourselves in this way. I don't know what you think about.
And there is a lot kind of love that is related with this holosomatic. Maybe it's more related with what you said too, that is cosmic love. And when we integrate all this kind of love, types of love, is a kind of a cosmic love. So the question here will be, I will jump to the question, what is the difference between physical, energetic love, affective, it's a physical and cosmic love? This is something that we need to to try to put our efforts in understanding this, because it's related to our daily life experience here, and we need to cultivate. And how we cultivate this kind of love, because it's related with the proximity of consciousness in different aspects, with different vehicles, with different bodies. And if we have all the types of love, we have this cosmic love, the holosomatic. And why? What is the difference? What do you think is the difference to have these different types of love? What is the consequence? Maybe the question would be better if what is the kind of consequence if we have one type instead of all, or just some? I would like to hear some thoughts about.
Maybe the quality of the vicinity that has been manifested by the consciousnesses involved, or by just yourself in relation to whatever the object is.
Yeah.
Umbrella, but gives you an idea.
Yeah.
I think there is a difference and a restriction, like physical love is restricted if you just have a physical love, but energetically it's like, for me, I see like, amplify your way of feeling things, love, the cosmic love, I see like much, bigger and with no restriction.
Yeah. Yes. There is something that's very important in terms of create connection, that is when we create the process of identification. When we identify ourselves with something we love, we care more, we have this kind of thing. Maybe when we cultivate this kind of love, we are going down to that part of the scheme that is the exchange of Tosenic exchange will be broader. Then we cultivate only some aspects of love, for example, just some kind of proximity to others will be distant in terms of other ideas, distant of other way of thinking. And then this create a barrier to be more open to the reality. And this maybe interfere in the quality of our extra-physical experience, because if you are too much cultivating some kind of love to some ideas or love to some people, your extra-physical consciousness will be tight or will be restricted to that kind of ideas or people. If you are more universalistic, and then this very important aspect of the projection, that we cultivate the universalistic approach to the reality. We accept others' possibility, other ideas, then we are more in the direction of the evolution. And this love is very important, cultivate this kind of love, this kind of, we have more experience, because, with love, we can create more connections. There is an expression in Conscientiology, because love is sometimes called a word that is, how can I say, is too common, is I don't know, but Waldo Vieira used to refer this the love has a mega fraternity. When we have mega fraternity, is a kind of connection with all live beings, and this is very important. So that's one reflection about this. Conscientise, I think is conscientise, yes, is the way we pronounce conscientise. This is something very sophisticated idea, the telepathic idiom, native to the extra-physical dimension. Well, this is something to learn through our evolution, we will need to discuss all this, always discuss this subject. And the idea is that there is a kind of way to understand the ideas without consider the idiom or the language or the dimension. We can access directly the idea. And then we don't need some artificial steps to be in contact with the idea. This is something very, very sophisticated. We are now in this moment we need now, for example, I'm trying to find words in English to explain what I thought in Portuguese. And this is something challenging for me. And if we have the possibility to be talking here in Conscientise, I was talking, expressing my ideas, and you are capturing no matter what words or idiom I was using. But this is, I think this in astrophysical dimension, this is some kind of possibility that is presented. We can have this kind of experience in the astrophysical dimension. Yeah, and there is a lot of characteristic of this kind of experience, but the thing is that I will highlight here this conscientise obviously make universalism possible and inevitable as a philosophical doctrine in the natural evolution of the eternal consciousness. Well, this means that we are going to develop this conscientise, and this is an approach to develop more universalism, and we can interact with astrophysical and extraterrestrial beings and all this kind of ideas that is possible to visualize the connection between consciousness in all the universe and all dimensions. And this is the importance of conscientise. And I have these two questions here, these three questions. What is the difference between telepathy and conscientise? Who read the chapter? There is a difference between telepathy and conscientise. Some of you remember the difference? Is the same thing for you?
No, well, is telepathy based on the language that
Yes.
the languages you're able to
Yes.
speak?
Yes. The main reason is this. The telepathy is more related with the exchange of what we are putting the toxins and ideas in terms of language, and then we exchange. This is a sophisticated thing, but is not so sophisticated as conscientise, because we can have the exchange without the language in conscientise. And why polyglottism is better related with conscientise? And both are related with to holocarmology. This is a very important aspect of when we have polyglottism, you are more close to conscientise, and these two things are more related with holocarmology. Why do you think this is the reason?
The more languages, the better. So facilitating greater grasp of ideas and concepts, and not connecting them so much to the phonetic sound that you're producing. Mm-hmm. So polyglottism gives you much more greater flexibility, and that's on the path towards conscientise. And polyglottism as well, in terms of holokarma, past lives and other territories where you are speaking other languages, helps you to study holokarma, because that gives you greater access to those things. And even lists, it was interesting, I saw the he lists like 8 classic languages from the past, like Russian and Chinese and other ones as well that, yeah, help in that research.
Yes, and research and the assistance too, because when you have the access to other language and other idioms, and you have access to other consciousness, because some consciousness are close to some ideas and some language, and they are connected with that language, and they are not able to be outside of this kind of holocene of that language, of that concept, and they are in other dimensions. There is the dimensions that people speak another language, and they stay in that language speaking in the astrophysical, and they are not connected with other ideas. There is kind of how can I say, a sect, kind of, and if you have access, you have other language, you can access this kind of consciousness. They are not able to understand conscientise, they are not able to understand other language, and then you have access to assistance, and then your holokarma, it will be bigger, and maybe your history is more, you have more history, you are more, how can I say, your holobiography is bigger, and you have contact and you have some kind of responsibility with that kind of idiom and that kind of people. And then the closeness, the proximity, the proxemics that is necessary to do assistance is possible. Otherwise, will not be accessible. Yeah, that is the reason. And this conscientise is something, maybe the reason for some more evolved consciousness have the ability to be helper to all kind of consciousness. We are able to be helper to some consciousness. When we have more conscientise or more polyglotism, we have the ability to assist more consciousness. Maybe that's the one reflection about. Okay. Well, we will continue here. Christina, I don't know if we are, well, we are in our time, but there is a lot of ideas, but astrophysical communicability technique, the better communicate with the astrophysical consciousness. What the idea here is, the idea is to understand that we have some ways of develop the astrophysical communicability. Yeah, it's not sometimes depend on the place where you are. There is a technique to consider. For example, the astrophysical environment and idiom, your intention, your will, and the psychosphere of the other consciousness. There is some aspects that you need to consider when you are in the astrophysical dimension, how to develop this kind of communications. And the question is, discuss this sentence. The difficulties in understanding astrophysical experience are also due to the limitations of human language, which is still incapable of incorporate in the consciousness the experiences which are not synthesized into a number of specific operational concepts. This is a phrase that I would like to discuss. When we are in the astrophysical dimension, we have experience, you are having some exchanges, but when you come back here, maybe one reason to have difficult to remember, to recall the experience is related to some concepts that we already don't have in our own language. And then we miss this information. We are not able to articulate, is ineffable.
Just came to my mind the barking of the dog, you know. The dog can bark and he understands us. He understands us, but he can just bark.
Yes. Exactly. Yes, the astrophysical experience, this is something weird to me. we can have another level of consciousness outside of our body. We can be more clever, more intelligent, more sophisticated. And when we come back here, when we are here in our daily life, we are normal. This is strange, yeah.
It seems that we don't have the capacity to do that, but I just seen a documentary where the dog talked to his owner because he learned some words there. And so he can say, oh, I want to go out, I love you, mom, and say lots of things since the beginning. And it's really interesting. I studied this dog, and it's like how much we learn, you know, and when we are in that reality, even if we are there, can we communicate in conscientia? So we still communicate in telepathic way, you know, because we know this language and we still there. We cannot, we are gonna need a time to learn some things, to evolve on this.
Yeah. We need to develop a kind of vocabulary to understand. With the cats, we hear, Chris, we have the kinds of some kind of sounds of our cats. We can understand what they are asking. We can develop this kind of understanding. But one thing I would like to highlight here is this specific operational concepts. This is the reason I think the Conscientiology creates so many terms, so many words, neologism, because we are trying to explicit some ideas that are not from this introphysical reality. We are trying creating concepts and ideas, operational concepts, to bring the astrophysical experience to introphysical in order to communicate. Because of this, we are a kind of science, yeah, a science of Conscientiology, the science of Projectiology, because we are creating operational concepts, we are creating way to express the reality, astrophysical reality. And this is, because of this, we are not so well accepted in the scientific community, because the scientific community are creating terms to describe the reality, physical reality, and we are creating terms to describe astrophysical reality. Many of our terms, our concepts, para something, this use of the prefix para, we use para for too many things. And then we create some ideas. There's analogy to an introphysical one, but it's astrophysical, and sometimes we, but is a manner, an attitude that we are creating to promote science. Yeah, this is something important. Well, the other aspect here is the astrophysical acquisition of original ideas. I think it is very, very important. It's very important, this because it's related with assistance. New information acquired by the consciousness. And then there is a lot of effects here in terms of the way we can communicate these new ideas. This is related with scientific discovering, a lot of things. But the question is, what does it really means, an unprecedented idea? What we have this, we can have an experience outside of our body and then have contact with an unprecedented idea. There is such thing of unprecedented idea to the universe.
When you said unprecedented idea, you said an original one?
Yes.
You are asking about original idea, that's some kind of idea that no other consciousness have ever had before. Is that right?
Yeah, is that?
Tough ask.
But
Yeah.
any other consciousness of this planet or in the universe?
That's the trick. That's the trick question. Yeah, that's
exactly.
yeah. who is having this unprecedented idea or original idea has to be only in relation to the consciousness or the time or the group that we are living, because all the ideas already exist in terms of, or there is a new idea. This is something that I discussed with Ulysses, how we create new ideas that no one has thought, no consciousness. It's possible for us as not Prae Serenissimus, in the level of Prae Serenissimus, have a new idea, or all the new ideas that are new for us as just new for us, but that's already known by other consciousness. Probably
maybe it's possible in that context. Maybe it's possible, but it's still not as a frequent occurrence as we might like.
Yeah, I think it's almost impossible. But we have to be open to some different, because the universe is expanding, the reality is expanding. Maybe some aspect of the reality will expand by me. I will be the first one to do something. Maybe it's possible. I don't know exactly what this would be, but sometime maybe it's, I don't know. It's for me, the more common thing is when we are evolving, we are having original ideas in terms of in relation to our group. I am here in Brazil. I am having astrophysical experience. I have experience I put in Portuguese and talk to Brazilians, and then I have an original idea here. Okay, but if you have some, in terms of scientific discovery, sometimes there is this phenomena that is two scientists are doing research in different parts, in different language, different countries, and they publish almost the same idea, and they have not contact with each other. And then later they discover that they have the same idea, but is not so common nowadays because the communication, we always have communications and exchange of ideas. So this is something just a more philosophical discussion, but I think in terms of evolution is necessary to understand that we need new ideas to evolve. We need original ideas. And the one way to acquire is to do projections. We can have different ideas in the astrophysical, but we have, there is a lot of ambient to have activities, courses, scientific events, books. There is a lot of sources to new ideas, to original ideas, because you can create ideas by combining different ideas.
Yeah, maybe it's a good thing to point out, Roberto. Like a new idea could be the result of two or more combined ideas. So the invitation here for reflection is how the erudition or polymatics, is that right? Polymaty could help. How polymaty could help us to have new ideas, and how polymaty could enhance our capacity of acquire ideas while we are in the projected state, you know, because it's not only to create, but this creation sometimes depends on the level of association of different kind of ideas, and then you come to a different result. Yeah, so this has to do with different kind of consciousness attributes, like also the capacity of make the links between two different things, yeah, and try to extract a result in a synergism. Or that's why in the encyclopedia they have all these sections that invite us to do these different kind of relations between ideas, like interactions, synergism, binomials, trinomials, and antagonists, you know, how you deal with different kind of ideas and what kind of relations it's possible to do with these ideas. So then it will come up with another different one. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And the technique of cosmogram, of conscientiology, cosmogram is very important, because create a kind of opening mind to new ideas, to new perspectives, and we cultivate the cosmogram is to read. Nowadays, we don't read more journals. We have internet, but we need to in papers, journals. But we need to understand this method to look to different things and create an approach to the reality with the interdisciplinarity. Yeah, this is very important idea. If you cultivate this interphysical, we will be more open to extraphysical experiences.
Yeah. Sorry, Roberto, we have to ask for some help of Magali and Michiko, because we are like, we just have like half an hour left. So I'd like to ask you girls, what's your suggestion for us? Because we haven't, I think that we haven't prepared ourselves for giving all this content and doing the discussions in the time period of time that we have. So do you think that we can just go through the definitions and then the questions, and then try to do the questions here, the discussions here instead of the break rooms? Or do you think that's good for us to go to the break rooms, and then we can select some questions about the chapters? Yeah, and I'd like to thank you all for being here. Michiko, I don't know if we had a chance to share our slides, or if you could just put in, I don't know, share with the group, because we just have highlighted some important passages in the book that maybe, and we have for each chapters, we have other kind of suggestions for reflections, some other questions. So maybe this could be useful for further, I don't know, reflections or further studies. Okay.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. And then Magali, did you want to present the technique?
Yeah, thank you, Roberto and Cristina, for your presentation. I think it has a lot of things here, and so important is, you know, proximity, even the how we relate to each other. Really good, thank you. And now I'm gonna share the technique. So we talked about a technique that is in the chapters. So we are gonna this month work with the technique for reaching the mental target. So you're gonna hear he describe, I'm not telling everything, but like you choose a friend or someone that you have affinity to have a projection with. So you can do it by a picture, by a email, or a letter that the person sent to you, or a gift, or an object that the person gave to you, a jewelry that, you know, a piece of this that remember this person. And so that person will be your target. So it's more about being together. And I also want to invite you for the next Bridge Book Club that is with Anne-Catherine and Eduardo Vincenti, will be August 20. Okay, so see you there, and thank you all for being here. Let's catch up with our readings this month, okay? And see you next month. Roberto and Chris, if you can stay just to the end, okay? Thank you, everyone. See you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Take care.
Oh, thank you very much.